What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we are breaking down Maryland ahead of the 2025 season. If you like this content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like. Those two things help us a ton as we try to grow. So thank you if you have done that. And if you have any feedback on Maryland, want to see another team, anything at all, leave it in the comments. I look at them all. So thank you if you've helped out that way as well. But taking a look back at last year before we look into this year's roster, here are the efficiency metrics for Maryland last year. They bottomed out. It was a 4-8 season. They had one win in the Big Ten, so it should come as no surprise that we see Maryland with efficiency metrics in a lot of spots outside the top 100 on offense. They had the worst offensive line in the Power Four. Some of that was due to injuries. They lost Isaiah right before the season, but they did not recruit this position well. And it's actually been a problem going back years for them. The only difference is you had Talia Tagovailoa for years, who was incredible at mitigating pressures with his arm. Billy Edwards, not quite as good, but he did do a fine job orchestrating the offense through a catastrophic offensive line. And it was a real shame because the skill position players were awesome. You had Roman Hemby, who's now at Indiana. You had Ty Felton get drafted. You had Caden Prather, who's now in the NFL late. Billy Edwards is now at Wisconsin. A lot of your skill position players are either on other teams, higher caliber teams, or in the NFL. Defensively, they were 94th overall. Their real struggle was in coverage. Up front, they were about average to above average in most areas, but the defense had a fatal flaw, and it was that back end, which led to a lot of points being given up for this team. And it was not unusual for Maryland. They've been a shootout team at times. As far as the coaching staff, we mentioned Loxley took a step back last year. He is now in year 7. His overall record is 33-41. Maryland had reached a bowl in 3 straight years, and that was in the rigors of the Big Ten East. This team, their best rosters, unfortunately for them, were still in that old antiquated structure where they had to play Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan every single season. And the first year they get out of that, they regress to 4-8 with their only Big Ten win coming by 1 point against USC, a game they very easily could have lost. Their other wins came against Villanova, Virginia, and UConn. As far as losses, the only single-digit loss they had was to Michigan State. Every other game was a double-digit loss, some of them in blowout fashion. So they obviously made some changes on the staff. Loxley's trying to upgrade the offense, especially. They part ways with Josh Gaddis and bring in Pep Hamilton. Most recently, he coordinated the Houston Texans offense in 2022. Hamilton's son plays for this team, which I think maybe was an influence in his decision. Typically, their offenses are a little slower, run heavier, but Loxley also has historically hired coordinators that are going to run his scheme. We generally don't see Maryland's offense change a ton, coordinator to coordinator, so I wouldn't be expecting a lot of changes with Pep Hamilton coming in. I don't know what to expect from the offense overall with that change specifically from Gaddis to Hamilton. Defense, some change here. They list 2 guys as co-DCs. Ted Montesino is a new coach for this staff. He was previously with North Carolina coaching defensive line. Azar Abdul-Rahim is back. He was a co-DC last year and a DB's coach. He was previously the Boston College co-DC in 2023. So some continuity, some change on defense, upgrading some position coaches. We'll see where that leaves Maryland. But let's start taking a look at talent acquisition for this team. They're pretty good in terms of the Big Ten. Obviously, they're not Ohio State, not Michigan, not Oregon. But as far as the second tier goes, this team is consistently in the top 40. They've been capable of reaching the top 20, 25-ish at times. And they have that in this incoming class where they currently are 25th in overall recruiting rankings. That's a very good spot to be in for Maryland. At times, their retention is poor. Their transfer class also will paper over some of these retention issues. They're 35th in the transfer portal this year. They were 85th last year. But some of the retention problems are a little bit concerning, and they're situational. It's not every single year, which makes me wonder, is this a problem on your recruiting staff? Are you just recruiting bad players, or are they taking other positions at schools of higher caliber? And I think it's a little bit of both. If you looked at that 2023 class, it's not only that they only retained 39% of it. They lost 5 of their top 7 recruits and basically all their 4 stars other than Neo Avery, who hasn't been able to play. Last year's class, yeah, your retention is pretty good so far, but you lost your number one recruit in this class, Brandon Jacob, the 4-star safety. He's gone. So I don't want Maryland to become a feeder system because at times this program has been that. And the talent they've retained, they haven't maximized through some issues with the roster overall being imbalanced and having a poor offensive line. Talent acquisition is not a problem for Maryland, but retention has been at times. Let's take a look at the roster as we dive into this season. Here is our 2 deep. This is available in Discord. We have all the teams there, so you can take a look at these rosters and what to expect. There's a power ranking too. Transfers are in yellow, the year they are in school to the right, followed by the snaps they played the last 2 years. And then there's a value score, which is basically we're trying to see how good these players are and predict moving forward. So it does look in the past. It starts with your recruiting ranking, and then the more snaps you play, the less it looks at that recruitment and the more it looks at on-field play. Maryland's breaking in a new quarterback. They lost Billy Edwards to transfer. He goes to Wisconsin. Still trying to fill the shoes that Taulia Tagovailoa left for this team after how much he did for them. And now they have a battle, a 3-way battle. It was expected to be 2, but redshirt freshman 3-star Christian Martin has made his name known. Let's start with the higher recruited players. The first is Justin Martin, the UCLA transfer. He's 6'4", 220 pounds, a 4-star. He's only thrown 35 passes in his career, 5.1 yards per attempt. There's not really much we can take away from the stats because they're non-existent. He does not appear to be the most mobile quarterback. Negative rushing yards despite only taking 3 sacks, which is at least kind of concerning. I mean, I don't really know what to expect from him. But fortunately, they have other quarterbacks on the roster that maybe can beat him out. First up, freshman 4-star Malik Washington. He's kind of the crown jewel of this class. He's a top 100 recruit, 10th ranked QB in this class, 6'4", 215. Has shown some dual threat ability, which is a skill set that Maryland likes to have when they can. They don't need it. Taulia Tagovailoa did not have as much of this, but he's been solid. The problem is he ready right away? And it doesn't appear so because he's been outplayed by redshirt freshman 3-star Christian Martin, who is a middling 3-star, now in his second year at the program, 6'4", 232. He is not the most mobile, but he's had the best spring of the 3. And there's a legitimate chance they have to start him, which probably is not going to be a good sign for Maryland moving into the season if he is the one that actually wins this job. Now it was spring. Martin's joining a new system. You have Malik Washington as a complete unknown freshman trying to acclimate himself to college ball. There's a chance that those 2 players play better in the summer and they retake the job back. But right now, I would expect to see multiple QBs from Maryland this year. And I'm not sure we're going to get the best play. It's talented. It's just young and unproven. So, I mean, generally we would like a returning starter or something to maximize this, but we just don't have that. At running back, unfortunately, they lose Roman Hemby to transfer. That leaves an unproven unit. Nolan Ray is the most experienced. He's 5'11", 215. Pretty efficient on a very small sample. 374 yards. That was 5 yards per carry, 11 catches. He averaged over 4 yards per carry after contact and forced 27 missed tackles. As long as we can extrapolate that to a larger sample, Nolan Ray should be just fine. Behind him, unproven, but there's a little bit of skill that we could look to for the future. DeJuan Williams is a redshirt freshman. 8 carries, 1 catch to his name. He's 5'10", 209. Josiah McLaurin's 5'11", 188. He's a sophomore now with 2 carries to his name. And they have a freshman early enrollee, Iverson Howard, who's been getting some hype. The backfield's mostly unproven, but I think there's enough talent here to potentially live up to Roman Hemby potential. We'll see on that, but a lot of it's going to come down to Nolan Ray and him playing efficient over a larger sample. At wide receiver, they lose their top 2 pass catchers, Ty Felton and Caden Prather. And Ty Felton was so good last year, drafted in the 3rd round by the Vikings. He's going to be extremely hard to replace. Among incumbents, their most experienced is former 4-star Octavian Smith, 5'11", 176, caught 30 passes for 315 yards. 97% of his snaps came in the slot. That should be what we expect this year. 0.81 yards per hour is not good, but it's also, you're playing behind Ty Felton and Caden Prather. You're not going to be targeted as much. So there's a chance he ascends. They also bring in a pair of transfers, Caleb Webb and Jaleel Farouk, both former 4-stars. Webb is from Tennessee, 6'3", 204, 22 career catches for 214 yards, perimeter receiver with 1.04 yards per route. Hopefully he can just get more playing time at Maryland, couldn't at Tennessee. Farouk, the problem's been injuries. He's 6'1", 208, only played in 2 games last year. Caught 45 balls for 690 yards in 2023. Perimeter receiver with 1.65 yards per out. I'd have a lot more optimism in Farouk if he can just shake the injury bug. That's been a problem for him. But the 4-stars don't end there. They bring in a freshman, Zymir Smith. We'll see what he can do in his first year at the program. Shalik Knotts is also back for his senior year. He is a former 4-star. He has never lived up to expectation. He has 23 career catches through 4 years. So, I mean, that's been another problem. At times, these 4-stars have not been very good for Maryland. We'll see if Knotts can finally break out in his 4th season. I'm not holding a candle or leaving a candle lit for him, but there are some other players that are younger. Mekhi White, 3-star freshman, redshirt freshman. He's been excelling in camp. Sophomore Ryan Manning's been excelling in camp. White is 6'2", 193. He had the best spring game. Manning is 5'9", 184. He caught only 3 passes last year, but also excelling in the spring game. They also flipped a JUCO, Jordan Scott from Florida State in the spring. We'll see if he can potentially crack the step chart. And one of their freshmen, Justin Devon, he's a track star, so maybe he gets on the field as a situational deep threat. They're definitely not as proven as last year. I would argue the high-end talent is not as great either with losing Felton and Prather, but they do have 4 4-stars in the roster and then some other players that have shown flashes. Maryland is going to be relying on this pass game, and they'll need someone to step up to fill the shoes of Felton. I'm just not sure they have it. At tight end, they lose almost every player that had a snap as well, highlighted by Dylan Wade and Preston Howard. The lone returner is Leon Houghton Jr., who is 6'4", 227. He looks more like a wide receiver, but he's barely played. His blocking is below average, and he only has 2 career catches. To help him, they bring in Dorian Fleming from Georgia State. He's 6'3", 234, caught 50 passes for 566 yards, only ran 40% of his routes in line, so he's also one of these receiving specialists at tight end. He was a below-average blocker in the Sun Belt. So, I mean, we're probably looking at a big slot receiver through most of this. I don't know. AJ Szymanski's back. He's only played 31 snaps. All of them came in 2023. He looks more like a blocker at 6'5", 266, but this is a very unproven tight end unit. And their only proven production is coming up from the Sun Belt, which leaves another question. Offensive line. All right. So Maryland has not recruited this position. They have not added transfers of caliber at this position, and it has been a problem even back to the Talia Tagovailoa days. He was just so good at evading pressures and getting the ball up quickly that you didn't notice it as much. Last year, they noticed it, and it was worse than the Talia Tagovailoa units. So they bring back 2 starters, and they weren't very good. The first one is former 4-star Alu Baugh from Georgia, 817 snaps, absolutely terrible as a run blocker. As a pass blocker, he allowed 16 pressures and 1 sack, which was not the worst among the team. And he is a former 4-star from Georgia, so maybe there is potential for him to ascend. Can't say the same for right tackle Alan Heron, who played 795 snaps. He was a transfer from Shorter. I don't know why they were thinking this would work. And honestly, I'm surprised it didn't go worse. He actually was an above-average run blocker. He was a complete disaster in the pass game. 38 pressures allowed, 5 sacks. I mean, you can't have that at the tackle position, but what were you expecting starting a player from Shorter? And I know the offensive line was banged up. They probably didn't intend for him to play that many snaps, but man, these 2 positions I think are average at best, even projecting moving forward. And at worst, they're 2 awful returning starters. Center, they're getting back Isaiah Wright. He was supposed to start last year, but he missed all of 2024 with injury. He did start the 2 prior years with Buffalo in the MAC, and 400 of those came at center, so that's just the cleanest projection to that position. In the MAC, he was a below-average run blocker, only allowed 14 pressures, which was solid, but it was also in the MAC. I think you're hoping for average play. At right guard, it looks like it's going to be Ryan Howerton, at least of now. He's a redshirt freshman, only played 24 snaps. But the one thing I'll say about playing a redshirt freshman at right guard over these other players and these transfers, if you just look historically at all redshirt freshmen of Howerton's recruiting caliber, they historically play better than what we've gotten out of Alu Baugh, Alan Heron, Isaiah Wright. So, I mean, we should be looking at younger players for this team. We cannot have these transfers from FCS come and play. And it's not just that. They're not good FCS players. So I don't know. I'm actually a little optimistic with him. I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the better offensive lineman on this team immediately. And they also recruit a 4-star guard, which is about time. Jalen Gilchrist comes in. He probably has to play sooner rather than later. And the other problem is, who is your left tackle? So you have a right tackle from Shorter. You bring in 2 transfers. Okay, who's Ritrell Perry? He's from Central Connecticut State. Okay, sometimes FCS players can make the jump. But red flag number 1. This is his 4th year of college football. He only started for 1 in the FCS. Unable to start your first 2 years, red flag. 2, played 902 snaps last year, 55th percentile production. When you have FCS transfers that go to the Big Ten, you want like 75% plus and ideally like 90% plus, because you do see a drop off year 1 in the FCS to year 2 in the Big Ten. It's just what happens. 3, he allowed 20 pressures and 4 sacks. Average run blocking. I mean, the expectation for Ritrell Perry in the Big Ten is awful. And you can't say the same thing for the other, or you can say the same thing for the other transfer they brought in, Carlos Moore from Elon. He played 604 snaps, 52nd percentile production in the FCS. I mean, it's time we start getting Michael Hershey, Trevor Szymanski on the field. I don't care that they're young and they're freshmen. You're just not getting good play out of these transfers, these low-level, below-average FCS transfers. This is the worst offensive line in the Big Ten, unless there is some wild development. They just do not have the talent to even compete with like the Purdues and the Northwesterns on the offensive line. So I feel bad for Justin Martin, Malik Washington. Like, this unit is just pure negligence at this point. They finished 133rd in offensive line efficiency last year. And yeah, there's some level of competition stuff. They were the worst unit in the Big Ten and the worst unit in the Power 4, and they're not much better this year. The only thing you can possibly say is you can only go down one spot. They were literally the 2nd worst offensive line in the country. I don't know. They're really banking on development with their coaching staff, because this unit is just, you can't come into a season with this. Defense. They lose their top 3 edge defenders, highlighted by Kellen Wyatt and Donnell Brown. They bring back 2 decent edges in DJ Samuels and Trey Reddick. They haven't played a lot. 127 snaps for Samuels, 186 for Reddick last year. Samuels is now a junior. He was a good run defender. He only had 1 pressure, but 11 tackles when he was on the field. Reddick was basically average across the board. He had 6 pressures and good run defense. He was a 3-star freshman last year, so there's potential for him to develop. The other player to mention, hopefully we see the Neo Avery breakout. I mean, he's now a 4-star redshirt sophomore. He's only played 98 snaps. He's been dinged up at times, but he's really had trouble reaching his potential, getting on the field and living up to his recruitment. He's 273, but even last year, only 4 pressures, awful run defense numbers. He had 2 tackles and he missed another 2. He only had his hands on 4 players. They otherwise returned Daniel Owens, who played 104 below average snaps to round out the group. If these guys can't step up, you're looking at 4-star freshmen Zahir Mathis playing immediately, and he might have to anyway. They bring in D.D. Holmes from Florida State. He's probably playing immediately. He's 6'6", 255. More of like a 5 technique, but he can play inside out. 16 pressures for him as a freshman last year. I think he is the spot right away in the step chart. Inside, they lose their top 2 defensive tackles, so they bring in a slew of transfers. Ian Thomas from St. Francis, Joel Starlings from North Carolina, Cam Rice from Ohio, and Cedric Smith from Alabama A&M. Cedric Smith is only 280 pounds. I don't think he's really going to play much. He's probably just a depth piece. He also didn't play a lot. He was a rotational piece in the FCS. But the other guys make some sense, starting with Ian Thomas from St. Francis. He's 336. He was a very good run defender, but only played 388 snaps. It's probably just a size conditioning thing. It's concerning that he couldn't play more than that at FCS, but I don't know. Joel Starling is a 4-star redshirt sophomore. He's been average to above average every time he's been on the field. He's 6'4", 320. I think you see him. And then Cam Rice is 6'3", 290. He originally began his career with West Virginia before going down and playing 322 snaps in rotation with Ohio. Very good pass rusher for the inside, though. 19 pressures last year, above average run defense. But it's the same story. These are low-level transfers or failures at previous programs. There's no experience. As far as other incumbents go, Dylan Fontes played 181 snaps. He was below average. They did at a 4-star, and Bryce Jenkins, he's probably going to have to play sooner rather than later. Just, again, the expectation for these freshmen historically, when just like all 4-star freshmen that play at his level of recruitment, they play better than these players that are incumbents and transfers. They got to get Jenkins on the field. I mean, they got to get their 4-stars on the field immediately. Just they don't have the talent. Linebacker, they lose Ruben Hippolyte and Caleb Wheatland That leaves Daniel Wingate as the most experienced linebacker, 311 snaps. He only started one game, but he was still third in the team in tackles, 50. He had 7 tackles for loss as well, which was good, and solid in coverage. 7 catches for 29 scoreless yards. All we need is him to play more snaps and maintain this production. He has a chance to be the best player on their defense. They also returned 268 snaps from 4-star junior Michael Harris. He had 34 tackles, 5 pressures. His real problem came in coverage. All 15 of the targets in his coverage were completed for 108 yards and 1 touchdown, so mostly kept stuff in front of him. I think these two are a pretty good position to start. Neither of them are full-time starters, but there's at least some production, flashes, or high recruitment. Behind them, sophomores Keyshawn Flowers, Kiari James played 60 snaps and 47 snaps. Kean Flowers is back as well. Inexperienced overall, but I think there's enough flashes to make this one of the better units on the team. Defensive back, this was the worst unit on the defense last year, and losing 3 starters should not be a real problem. The worst departure for them, the best player, Glendon Miller, he's gone. Their safeties are back, Jalen Husky and Levain Scruggs. Husky originally came in from Bowling Green last year. That was his second year starting. This will be his third. He took a predictable step back in the Big Ten. He was still 4th on the team in tackles with good run defense numbers. 60% completion for 191 yards, 2 scores, and 3 interceptions. So he was far from a problem. But still, he played better in the MAC. That's just what happens. Should be expected. Levain Scruggs played 375 snaps. He started 4 games. He was still 5th on the team in tackles with 43. Good run defense numbers. 67% completion for 182 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 3 picks. Coverage could use a little work, but he was still fine enough where you should be pretty comfortable with your safeties. And their depth is decent, so maybe you kick one of these safeties into the slot because one of your 4-star freshmen, Messiah Delhomme, is on the team. Shamar McIntosh is the other player. He only had 11 snaps. I think Delhomme is probably someone that you could play right above him. Not deep, but if your 4-star shows out, you're looking at playing 3 safeties, kicking one into the slot. At corner, they had some transfers. Jamari Glasker comes in from Wake Forest. He started 9 games, played 523 snaps. Decent run defender, 37 tackles. But I'm worried about these coverage numbers. 71% completion for 499 yards, 5 scores, 1 interception, 3 PBUs. It probably doesn't cut it in the Big Ten. We'll see. Dante Joyner comes in from Arkansas State. He was elite down there. 50 tackles, 53% completion for 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 6 PBUs. Need to extrapolate that to the Big Ten from the Sun Belt. But there's a pair of second-year 4-stars, Braden Lee and Kevin Humes. Braden Lee played 61 snaps. Humes played 163. Both of them largely spent their situational snaps on the boundary. So maybe you see them play immediately over Glasker or Joyner. I wouldn't be surprised either way. But that gives you 4 legitimate boundary corners. You also could see Lakai Rowland play a little bit more. He had 291 snaps, 57% completion, 99 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 PBU. I've heard his name brought up in the slot, but he also could play the boundary. Your most experienced slot is Judah Jenkins, who played 145 snaps last year as a freshman. He played 117 of those in the slot. He allowed 131 yards and 13 targets, which isn't great. So I'm not sure about this. The configuration of the secondary still leaves some questions, but I think there is enough for this unit to be a little better than last year. I'm not sure it's average, but it's better. We'll see. They're short on experience. They're short on talent. And overall, this roster, they're not recruiting certain positions at a high enough level. Offensive line stands out. Defensive line stands out. This trench game is not Big Ten standard. Where they are recruiting well, receiver, defensive back, quarterback, those positions are limited by the trench play. And last year, the year prior, and even back to 2022, they've been so good at some of those positions, they've been able to paper over it and sort of mask their weaknesses. This year, especially at QB, you're turning to freshmen, redshirt freshmen, transfers. I don't know. Special teams, this unit was 83rd last year. They're now breaking in a new kicker, Gavin Marshall. He's only kicked 3 extra points in his career, never attempted a field goal. Not sure what we get there. I hate to say it. We currently have this graded as the worst roster in the Big Ten. But it's going to come down to scheduling. It's not like they're that much further behind Purdue, Northwestern, and some other teams. So let's take a look at the schedule and see what Maryland has. You will be happy. This is the easiest schedule in the Big Ten. I think we can say that confidently. You have 3 wins in non-con. If you lose to FAU, Northern Illinois, Towson, burn it down, and fire Loxley, they should win all those games. In the Big Ten, they only play one of the Big 4 teams. which is like Wisconsin would kill for this schedule. They only play Michigan. So even among the big four, you're dodging Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. Those are the top three teams in the conference. You get Michigan. It is what it is. You're going to be a huge underdog. The rest of this schedule, I mean, you're playing some teams from the middle of the pack. Nebraska, Indiana, Illinois from the second tier. You're definitely going to be an underdog in all those games, but two of them are at home. Only one of them's on the road, Illinois. And then you get Washington, Wisconsin, and UCLA. You get Michigan State, you get Rutgers. They're going to be underdogs in most of these games, but I mean, it's kind of a shame. This is the easiest schedule in the Big Ten. Most of those teams are in the bottom half of the preseason odds. I think if you're Maryland, you're hoping to win all of your non-con games and then get to 5. If you get to bowl eligibility, this is a resounding success, even with the schedule. This roster is that bad. But those are my expectations. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of Loxley. I mean, I'm a little disappointed at this point, and I think if he hadn't had the ties to Tulia Tagovailoa, we're probably looking at a firing already. Again, I'm not sure what the Maryland expectations are, but I mean, I would assume they expect to at least make a bowl. But that'll do it for us. Let me know what you think. Until next time, good luck. We will see you guys again later.